Hi, this is Liz from Create Access. This video will show you how to create a building in the Unreal Editor for Fortnite, or UEFN, that can be used in a Fortnite experience. We will be using the assets available in the Fortnite library within UEFN to make our building, but there are many other approaches you can try as you get comfortable with creating in UEFN. After you complete this lesson, you should have a fully constructed building ready for use in a Fortnite experience. The countless different building materials in UEFN mean your options for what your building can look like are nearly limitless. Here is an example of one type of building that can be constructed by following the steps we will discuss here. To get started, launch UEFN and create a new project, or open an existing project in which you'd like to construct your building. Once your project is open, you may want to move away from the player spawner so you're not building on top of it. Navigate to the general area where you'd like to start building. Soon you can start selecting building materials like walls, doors, floors, and ceilings to begin constructing your building. But first, it's a good idea to activate two tools that will make putting your building together much easier: Snap to Grid and Snap Object to a Rotation Grid. Snap to Grid will ensure that the components of your building line up and connect to each other properly by default by aligning them with a grid. This saves you from having to make lots of manual adjustments, which might be inaccurate and cause your building to appear crooked. Activate Snap to Grid by clicking the button with the grid symbol toward the top of the viewport. It should be blue when activated. Clicking on it again should turn the button gray and deactivate it. Now enable Snap Object to a Rotation Grid. This option ensures that objects rotate at fixed angular increments, so again, you don't need to make a lot of manual and potentially inaccurate adjustments. Click the Snap Object to a Rotation Grid button just to the right of the Snap to Grid button. It is enabled when the button is blue. Now it's time to select the theme you'd like to use for your building and choose your building materials. While you can use your creativity to combine building materials with different themes from different folders, it's a good idea to use materials with the same theme when you're just getting started because they will fit together easily. Locate the content drawer in the bottom left of your screen. The content drawer is where all of the assets in the Fortnite library are stored, as well as any assets you import yourself. Access the Fortnite folder, click the arrow to access the drop-down menu, and then double-click on the Galleries subfolder. Next, double-click on the Building subfolder within Galleries. There are numerous subfolders containing themed assets available within the Building folder. Explore these subfolders to get an idea of the large variety of assets that you can use on your island. For this project, I'm going to use assets from the Art Deco Bank Gallery Red folder, so I'll navigate to that. Below the search bar in your content drawer, you should now see a variety of building assets, such as walls and windows. You can scroll through the folder to see thumbnails of the different assets available to you, or you can search for what you're looking for by typing a search term into the search box. For example, if I type window into the search box, several options for windows will appear. Once you find an asset you'd like to use on your island, click the thumbnail in the content drawer and drag it onto your island. You only need to click and drag each type of asset once. I'll show you how to replicate assets on the island in a few minutes. Make sure you select at least one type of wall, window, ceiling, door, and floor. For now, you can place these assets anywhere you want. We'll start putting them in place shortly. Now we're going to create the outline for the building using the assets we just selected. The outline will provide the basis for your building, and you will build upon it to complete the structure. We will start with the door and then add walls. Later, we will add floors, a ceiling, windows, and other features. The primary tools that will be used to put your building assets in place are the translation gizmo and the rotation gizmo. The translation gizmo is used to move assets left and right, up and down, and forward and back along the X, Y, and Z axes. It can be accessed in the toolbar toward the top of the viewport. Click on the button to activate it. The button will turn blue when active. Click and drag any of the handles on the gizmo to move the asset in the corresponding direction. The rotation gizmo is located just to the right of the translation gizmo in the same toolbar and is used to rotate assets. It is active when it is blue. To rotate an asset, click on the rotation gizmo with the asset selected. The asset can be rotated in multiple directions. Hold the left mouse button down on the desired handle of the rotation gizmo. Drag the mouse to rotate the asset. By default, the rotation gizmo is set to rotate assets in 90-degree increments. This default can be changed for any individual asset by selecting the asset, then clicking on the angle measurement number on the rotation grid snap value tool, and changing the number on the resulting drop-down to get smaller or larger rotation angles. Note that you will need to change the angle individually for each asset if you'd like to use something other than the default 90 degrees. When starting out, I recommend rotating these assets at 90 degrees. Once you get used to building, you can experiment with other increments. Now let's start putting building assets in place. First, select the door asset by clicking on it. It should now be outlined in orange. Access the translation gizmo and use the arrows on the gizmo to drag your door to the location you choose. Next, select the wall asset. Use the translation gizmo and rotation gizmo as needed to drag it and place it next to the door. Because you enabled Snap to Grid earlier, it should snap into place aligned with the door. From here, you can replicate your wall asset as many times as you want to get the shape and size building you want. There are two ways that you can replicate an asset. First, you can use the copy-paste function. To do this, click on the asset to select it. If you're using Windows, hit the Control key and the C key on your keyboard at the same time. This copies the asset to a virtual clipboard. Then hit Control and the V key on your keyboard. This will make a copy of the asset on top of the original. You can then use the translation and rotation gizmos to move the copy to a location of your choice. You can hit Control V as many times as you want and keep replicating your asset until you select another one. Another way to replicate assets is by using Alt plus click and drag. To do this, select the asset you want to replicate by clicking on it. In this case, I'm replicating the wall asset. It will be outlined in orange, and you can access the translation gizmo to move it. Hold down the Alt key on your keyboard. While holding Alt, use your mouse to place the cursor over the arrow on the translation gizmo that indicates the direction that you wish to go with your copied asset. Hold down the left mouse button and drag the asset to the desired location. When the left mouse button is released, the new asset should snap to the grid. You can now use the translation gizmo and the rotation gizmo to maneuver the walls to the desired locations and orientations on the island. Continue selecting, placing, and replicating walls until you have the basic shape of the building that you want. Don't worry about the windows, ceiling, or other features just yet. Navigate around your building to make sure the outline looks as you wish it to and that everything is lined up properly. Make adjustments as needed. Try different views so you can see your building from different angles. For example, you can try changing your position with the left, right, up, and down arrow keys on your keyboard. You can also try left-clicking and dragging with your mouse in all directions to change your position and view in a horizontal plane until you are facing your building. Next, you can try right-clicking and dragging, which will allow you to look around and change the direction you're looking, including looking up and looking down. You can adjust your view so you are looking down at the ground, and then move up in space to get a bird's eye view of your building. To move up or down, click and drag your scroll wheel. You can click and drag backwards until you are hovering above your building, or click and drag forwards to move closer to it. Try these different approaches in different combinations until you get the view you want. Movement in UEFN often takes a little getting used to. Just keep experimenting and practicing. Now you can add a floor to your building. You may have already selected a floor tile earlier, but if not, choose one from the content drawer and drag it onto your island. Use the translation gizmo to move a floor tile into your building, and then either use copy and paste or Alt plus click and drag to replicate the floor tiles and cover the entire floor. The floor tiles should snap into place if Snap to Grid is enabled. Now we'll discuss adding additional stories to your building. If you'd like your building to be only one floor, you can skip this step. However, if you'd like multiple stories, navigate with your mouse until all of your building's components are visible. If you're still looking down at the building, this view will work well. There is a useful trick that allows you to select multiple assets at the same time. You would typically use this to copy a large group of your island's assets all at once. Hold the Shift key down on your keyboard and then left-click on every asset that you wish to select. Each clicked asset will be outlined in orange. The outlines give good visual feedback about which assets have already been selected and which ones have not. Since we are trying to duplicate the entire first floor, hold the Shift key and click every asset on the first floor, the walls, the door, and the floor, one after the other until they are all outlined in orange. Hit Ctrl plus the C key on your keyboard to copy all selected assets. Then hit Ctrl plus the V key to paste them. You can then use the translation gizmo to move all selected assets at the same time, placing them above your original building outline. Do this as many times as you wish for as many stories as you'd like your building to have. We will now add a ceiling to just the top floor of the building. You may have a ceiling tile asset that you dragged onto your island from the content drawer earlier, but if not, you can go back to the content drawer to select one now and drag it onto your island. Select the ceiling tile by clicking on it. Use the translation gizmo to drag the ceiling asset into one corner of your building. Use Ctrl-C to copy the newly placed ceiling asset, then use Ctrl-V and the translation tool to complete the ceiling. Or you can use Alt plus click and drag to replicate ceiling tiles. Note that you might want to use roof assets rather than ceiling assets, but we're using ceiling assets for this example. Now you can add windows to your building. This can be done by replacing any of the walls and the upper story doors with windows. Return to a head-on perspective of your building. Select doors and walls that you want to replace with windows by clicking on them and then clicking Delete on your keyboard to delete them. Replicate your window asset as many times as you need to in order to fill the empty spaces by using Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V or using Alt plus click and drag. Then click and drag your window assets into the empty spaces using the translation gizmo. Adding exterior trim, pillars, and other details can help make your building more visually appealing. If you'd like to add exterior trim, navigate to the folder in the content drawer where the assets you've chosen so far are located and type trim in the search bar. Replicate your trim pieces as you've done with other assets and click and drag them to outline the roof of your building with trim. Use the translation and rotation gizmos as needed to help with positioning. Follow the same procedure to add pillars to the vertical corners of your building. With your asset folder selected in the content drawer, search for pillar using the search bar. Click and drag your selected pillar onto your island, replicate it, and drag each pillar to the desired location on your building. Adjust the position of each pillar using the translation and rotation gizmos as needed. Finally, if your building has multiple stories, you may want to add interior stairs. To do this, navigate to the inside of your building on the ground floor. You can accomplish this in different ways. For example, you can move forward and backward by using the arrow keys on your keyboard, or by scrolling using your mouse's scroll wheel. Move through the walls of your building to the interior. Decide on an area where you would like to add stairs. Select a ceiling asset, which is actually a floor asset of the second story, and delete it. Access the folder of assets you've been using in the content drawer and type stair in the search bar. Choose a staircase and click and drag it into your building near the area of the ceiling you just deleted. Use the translation and rotation gizmos to position the stairs as you wish. To move between floors, you can hold and drag your mouse's scroll wheel. Drag forward to move down and backward to move up. You can also hold down the left mouse button and press and hold the Q key to move down, or the E key to move up. If you have a multi-floor building, you can copy and paste the copied stairs above the original stairs. Do this as many times as you need so that all floors of your building are accessible. Notice that there is an open area on each set of stairs that could allow a player to fall from one floor to the floor below. To prevent this, we will add a protective asset. In the content drawer, search for quarter wall. Select a quarter wall, click and drag it onto your island, and place it at the edge of the opening between floors using the translation and rotation gizmos. Repeat the placement of quarter wall assets for all stairs in your building. You've now constructed a building that can be used in a Fortnite experience. UEFN has a huge number of assets that you can use to make your building and your island as sophisticated and unique as you want. Take some time to explore the asset folders to discover what is available and how different assets work together, and experiment with the many exciting ways that you can build the world around you in 3D. Thanks for watching.